Welcome back to LEXi 101, your jumpstart into strategy trading with the TradeFormers OR LEXi strategy. In some previous sessions, we saw how to use the inputs that are in the OR LEXi strategy to control exactly where you're going to enter. And we also saw that we have some TradeFormers show me analysis techniques that will show you certain reference lines on your screen. Two of which we looked at were an OR high, which draws this green line by default at your high of your OR bar, and we looked at previous day's high, which is another show me that will draw a darker green line at the high of the previous day if you have it set for the previous day, or the high of as many days back as you want to go. And we saw how if you go into LEXi, you could set high days to clear, one of the clear inputs, to 1, and you will change your entry to require it to be above the previous day's high in addition to the OR high. And also we said that you could turn off the OR bars and just use the clear as where you want to get in, and in this case you'll get in at the same place. Well, there are a bunch of other clears, and I'd like to go through them one by one, and I've put all the show me's in here so that we could take a look. And if we go into our analysis techniques, we've got some key reference points that we're going to go over. We've already taken a look at the OR high and the end day high. We want to take a look at the 1-day pivot high and the 3-day pivot high, two reference points that are frequently used by traders. I'm also, for the time being, going to turn off my opening range high and my previous day's high, and I'm going to turn on my 1-day pivot high. And since we're going to go into the strategy now and say, I'm going to leave OR bars of 0 and set pivot days to clear to 1. And when I do that, I can get in as soon as I get a bar above the 1-day pivot high. Let me just check to see if I did not turn high days to clear off. And when we do that, you see that we can get in on the first bar above the 1-day pivot. Now, I might also want a 3-day pivot. So I have the show me set for 3-day pivot days. That's our 3-day pivot. And we can see the 3-day pivot high is the solid line up there. If I now go into OR LEXi and set pivot days to clear from 1 to 3, that means I'll have to clear the 3-day pivot high, or the 3-day pivot, and you see I don't do it until this bar. So in addition to the pivots, the 1-day and 3-day pivot, we also have floor trader pivots. And floor trader pivots are a bunch of reference points, support for S and resistance for R, and the center point, which is the floor trader's pivot, in the middle. Now, these pivots are calculated from the previous day's data and are very valuable reference points for determining when the next resistance price might be, or where support comes in. Now, here's a few days with a standard opening range setup, and you can see all the reference points and how they line up. Let's see how our different codes work. Now, in the documentation, which you remember you can get to in your TradeFormers programs directory, you'll see that for FT pivots to clear input, we have these 8 codes or 9 codes. Okay, if you count 0, which means don't use it. But if you have you want to clear a specific pivot, you can use those codes, and it's pretty easy to remember. 0 is none, 1 is S3, 2 is S2, 3 is S1, then 4 is the floor trader pivot itself, 5 is R1, and 6 is R2, and 7 is R3. That's what these codes are. Plus we have a secret code to just use the next pivot. So if I wanted to clear R2 before I entered on this trade, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's code. R1 is 5, R2 is 6. So we would go in here and change FT pivots to clear to 6. And here you'll see FT pivots to clear. If we enter 6 here, it'll tell us we got to clear R2 before we enter, and you see that we do. Now, in addition to specifying the exact specific floor trader pivots to enter on, you could go in and say, make that a -1, which is the code for use the next pivot. And when you use the next pivot, it turns out we got the same one on this day because it was the next pivot above. But we could use this in general to not have to specify the specific code, but just say, you know what, I don't want to enter until I pass the next floor trader's pivot. So that is floor trader's pivots. The last one, though, is not so simple. It's the clear MA days to clear. Now, MA stands for moving average. And when we use moving average days to clear, we're not talking about the moving average of bars like we're typically talking about in a TradeStation strategy or analysis technique. We're looking to compute from our 5-minute bars what the daily moving averages are, and to show them as reference lines, horizontal lines, on our intraday bar chart. As an illustration of that, I believe I've set up some examples of that we need to know about coming in here. And for starters, let's look at a daily chart. And here we have a daily chart. We have those blue dots representing our standard TradeStation 10-day moving average of the close using TradeStation moving average 1 line. Now in a second chart, which I'll squish down so that we can see it, that it's the same data, but instead of it being daily data, it's 390-minute data. Now 390-minute data is all there is in a day. So this is a way of creating a bar chart with intraday bar chart that's the same as the daily bars. And if we line them up the same, you'll see that the data looks pretty close. Let's see, there we go. That's exact. So these bars you'd figure are exactly the same. And if you were to look at your moving average, okay, using the standard 10-day moving average function, there's our dots. You would expect those dots would be in the same place, but not exactly. And the reason I bring this up is there's a difference between analytic lines, moving averages that are calculated off of the intraday bar chart data as opposed to daily data. And I'm going to argue that the bar chart data, the intraday bar chart data, is more accurate in the context of automated trading. And we'll get to that in our next session.